Hi, my name is Kelsey Mead, and this is my case study for EDL850, Internet Use Violations, Threats Over the World Wide Web. Problem identification and analysis. What do you know? I know that Roosevelt High School is in a very established and affluent community. Dr. Forbes is an established and successful principal who teachers, parents, and students look up to. Miss Walker is in her second year of teaching at Roosevelt High School. Parents and students have complained to Dr. Forbes of the intense rigor and instructional delivery Miss Walker has in her classes. Dr. Forbes has discussed with Miss Walker various techniques to reduce student stress and increase positive interactions. Miss Walker has not successfully implemented any of the techniques. It is November in the school year, and Miss Walker has received an anonymous email with a link to a website that has highly suggestive comments of her personal behaviors and critical comments about her classes, even threats of harming Miss Walker's life. Miss Walker immediately calls Dr. Forbes, tells him about the website, and they agree to meet with any suspects on Monday when they return to school. What do you need to know? I need to know who has had a problem with Miss Walker so that I can identify suspects, who created the website, who added information to the website, was it one person or more than one, who sent Miss Walker the anonymous email, and what was the intent of the person who created the email. Identify the problem. The problem that is presented in this case study is that Miss Walker has received an email with a link to a website that has highly suggestive comments about her personal behaviors and critical comments about the rigor of her classes, using vulgar curse words. She is fearing for her safety due to comments made. Dr. Forbes is made aware of the situation, and they are going to question suspects when school is back in session to see if they can determine who created the website. There is also the underlying problem of Miss Walker's classroom instruction and lack of response to Dr. Forbes' suggestions to improve her teaching. Proposed plan of action with appropriate strategies for implementation. Steps to resolve the problem. These are the steps that I would take. First, I would talk with Miss Walker again on Monday morning to get all details and her side of the story. I would gather a list of suspects from Miss Walker, as well as any suspects Mr. Forbes would be aware of due to complaints he has received. I would speak to each suspect and then see if a solution can be reached after talking to the suspects. If not, contact district technologists to see if they can track who created the website. I would then talk with Miss Walker about the resolution and any consequences that will result, and then I would give the consequences if a suspect is found. These are the strategies I would take for each step. So for talking with Miss Walker again on Monday morning to get the details and her side of the story and gather the list of suspects, first thing in the morning I would bring Miss Walker into my office to discuss her side of the story again. I would have someone plan that can step in and teach for Mrs. Walker should the meeting go into instructional time. I want to ensure that I have Miss Walker's side and all of the information without rushing through the meeting. I would write down everything Miss Walker says so that I can look back through my notes as needed and ensure that everything is documented. I would create a list of suspects using Miss Walker's and Dr. Forbes' knowledge of the students and or parents that may have a motive to create the website, and I would make sure that Miss Walker knows that I am there to support her and will do anything in my power to solve the problem. In speaking to each suspect, I would call each suspect individually into my office. I would make sure that the suspects don't have an opportunity to talk to each other during this process. I would ask questions on how they feel about Miss Walker as a teacher to get their perspective on the issue. I would ask if they know anyone who has wrote anything about Miss Walker. I would then show them the website and see what their reaction is or if they know anything about the website. I want to make sure that the students understand the severity of such a website and that I'm trying to get to the bottom of the situation this way rather than going through the technologists to determine who created the website. I would like the truth, and it would be better for the student to tell the truth the first time. In seeing if a solution can be reached after talking to the suspects, if not, I would have to contact the district technologist. I would call the district technologist and explain the situation that has been presented to me. I would see if they could track who created the website, and I would also get a timeline of how long the process will take so that I could inform those who are involved of where we're at in the process, and then I would follow up with the technologist to see if they were able to track who created the website. My next step would be talking with Ms. Walker about the resolution and any consequences that will result. I would have a one-on-one meeting with Ms. Walker about what I've been able to find. I would let her know the resolution that I have come to. If a suspect was found guilty of creating the website, I would let her know the consequences that they will suffer. And again, I will make sure that Ms. Walker is aware that I have done everything I was able to, and I have taken this very seriously. And then I would give the consequences if the suspect is found. If a suspect is found, I would first consult the handbook to see what the consequences are for such things occurring. I would call the student's parents so they are aware of the situation and invite them in to meet with me and the student. I would call the suspect into my office to talk with them about what has been found during the investigation and talk through the event with the student so that they understand what they did was wrong and how they could have better handled the situation. I would reference the handbook and the consequences outlined there, and then I would give out the consequences. Resolve the issues based on promoting the success of all students. So for the resolution, what is best for students? If a student is found guilty of making the website, I believe that a consequence such as out-of-school suspension needs to be enforced. Since the website makes comments about Ms. Walker's personal behaviors, critical comments of the rigor of her classes, and threaten her life, the situation must be taken seriously. The student was probably unhappy with Ms. Walker based on the amount of comments the students and teachers had been making about Ms. Walker's teaching. However, this does not make the behavior acceptable. Dr. Forbes, being the esteemed principal he is, has taken all the necessary steps to resolve the problem in thinking not only what is best for the students, but also his staff. In order to promote the success of all students, I think that a follow-up conversation with all students needs to be had so that they are reminded of the expectation and rules surrounding threats and internet use violations. Hopefully, by having such reminder, students will realize the severity. I also think when thinking of what's best for all students, a follow-up conversation with Ms. Walker about her teaching practices also needs to occur. Debrief the problem by reflecting on what you were thinking, feeling, and valuing, and by identifying the issues that are unresolved or open to further investigation. What was I thinking? As I was reading this case study, I was thinking about the background information surrounding the town in which Roosevelt High School is located, the education and background of Dr. Forbes and Miss Walker, and what I would do had I been involved in the situation. What was I feeling? As I was reading this case study, I was first feeling that Miss Walker was not a great teacher, as she would not take and implement the feedback that Dr. Forbes had given. I also felt that if I was in Miss Walker's position, I would be scared and upset that I had found a website like that about myself. Lastly, I felt that Dr. Forbes would handle the situation well because of his background and knowledge of education. What was I valuing? As I was reading, I was valuing how I would treat my teachers if I were an administrator, how I would effectively handle the situation, and how I would address the students involved. I value my staff, students, and parents, and wanted to make sure that any decision made was the best for everyone involved. What issues are still unresolved or open to further investigation? If a student is found guilty of making the website, then I think the issue that still needs to be resolved is Miss Walker's teaching style and willingness to change. When provided with feedback, she needs to implement and try different strategies that will not only help her, but the students and parents as well. I think there is an issue with her not listening to Dr. Forbes' suggestions that needs to be addressed. How did I, as the building administrator, demonstrate a sense of integrity and ethical behavior that serves as a model for all members of the school community? As the building level administrator, I demonstrated a sense of integrity and ethical behavior by being honest with Ms. Walker as to how I was going to handle the situation. I kept her safety my number one priority. I also showed my strong morals with my ethical behavior in addressing the situation consistently and not making an excuse for anyone involved. I knew that what had happened was not okay, and I would do everything I could to come to a resolution. I always kept the teachers, students, and parents at the forefront of my decision making. The student's success is my number one priority, which was a showcase of my integrity. How did I, as the building level administrator, treat people fairly, equitably, and with dignity and respect? As the building level administrator, I treated students fairly and with respect by not accusing them of anything and rather presenting the information in a way where I was able to get their views and ideas, and then presented the issue at hand, which gave them the opportunity to tell me what they knew of the situation. I also treated Miss Walker fairly by not treating her any differently than I would any of my other staff members, regardless of the negative comments I had heard regarding her as a teacher. I treated her as an equal throughout the entire process. I was respectful of everyone involved in the process and treated them as I would want to be treated. I kept everyone updated throughout the process and respected their time and thoughts regarding the situation. How did I, as the building level administrator, demonstrate a personal and professional code of ethics that inspires others to higher levels of performance? As the building level administrator, I demonstrated my personal code of ethics by being available and willing to help Miss Walker with the situation immediately. I addressed the situation first thing on Monday morning, which showed that I cared for her as a person and truly wanted to help. Professionally, I did everything I could to ensure that an answer to the problem was found. I valued my staff and students enough to take my time and thoroughly investigate the issue. I wanted to ensure that everyone was safe and that learning was our number one focus. I showed my staff and students that we are a team, and when one person is suffering, we step up to the plate and do what we can to help them. The ISLLC standards that I used were Standard 3. An education leader promotes the success of every student by ensuring management of the organization, operation, and resources for a safe, efficient, and effective learning environment. And I used Function 3, promote and protect the welfare and safety of students and staff. I also used ISLLC Standard 5. An education leader promotes the success of every student by acting with integrity, fairness, and in an ethical manner. And Function 3, safeguard the values of democracy, equity, and diversity. Thank you.